Something I see a lot of new authors today do, what I probably did to some extent, was throw everything into their book one and then be disappointed if it didn't work, or throw everything into the first trilogy and then feel like, oh my God, I'm never going to make it. But the truth is that we love writing, right? We are here for the art, and we are making it a business because it's the best thing that we can, it's the best way to keep doing it forever. But that love of the writing is what brings us back here. So hold on to that. Remember that you're going to want to keep chasing that particular thing.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Author Adjacent, a show about the journey from hobbyist writer to professional author. I'm your host, Michael Vatney, and today I am sitting with Andy Peloquin, author of 6 different series, I believe, from Dark Blade to Cerberus. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you for having me. I will have to say that's probably one of the most professional sounding intros that I've had on a podcast in a while. So clearly you have done this before.
A few times. I actually went to school for broadcast communications and then never did anything with it until this show. So well spent money right there.
You know what? That's the way of life. You're like, you know what? Let's throw all this kind of spaghetti at the wall, and it's the most random thing that sticks.
Oh, yeah. That is exactly how I found my career, which I ended up being a software engineer, just trying a bunch of different things and seeing what happened. But we're actually here today to talk about you, yourself, your journey, how you've gotten to the point where you are today. And folks, come back next week as we're going to be talking about 4 aspects of book packaging and marketing, again with Andy. That's going to be very exciting. I'm going to learn a lot, and so are you. But for this week, what I immediately wanted to start with is what sparked your passion for writing. Was it a key moment, or was it just an experiences over time that led you to pursue authorship?
I think it's kind of the perfect storm of a bunch of factors. So growing up in an artistic household, my dad's a musician, my mom's a writer, my brothers are graphic designers and painters and all. Like they're all super artistic, and I do a mean stick figure. That's about it. But when I was around 15, I found myself with a lot of free time and a computer that had no internet, no video games, and nothing but Microsoft Word and Microsoft Paint. And it was kind of fated to be because, terrible artist again. And I think I spent like 3 hours writing the shittiest chapter 1 of a book that is like Jason Bourne meets Mission Impossible meets James Bond meets every martial arts movie that I loved watching as a 15-year-old boy. This was catnip for 15-year-old boys. And it was absolute garbage. Thankfully, it has never seen the light of day. No one will ever know. But time vanished while I was doing it. And I was like, okay, this was so much fun. So I ended up going back and again and writing like 5 chapters of it. Again, pure garbage, but so much fun. And I fell in love with that, just that disappearing into the story. So during my adolescence and young adulthood, I kind of tinkered here and there. I dabbled in some humor, some satire, some dark stuff, and it was in my mid-20s or so. I was working as a copywriter, a job that I did not study for but kind of stumbled into, that I realized, oh, this is a freelance job and I'm going to die doing this unless I find something else, to do. And I had spent so much time getting accustomed to sitting down and writing words. I would write 10 to 15,000 words a day of blog posts and stuff that no one really gives a shit about, but you get paid to write it. And I thought, well, if I could take even a fraction of that effort and put it towards something I like, and I could write stories, maybe that's something I could sort of do forever. So I was visiting my brothers in Vancouver, and I knew that I would be sitting on a bus and at the airport and doing nothing for a while. So I determined that I would write a story, and it was this graphic novel script called The Last March of the 13th Rifles. So it's basically 300 meets The Chain of Dogs from Malazan, where I knew from the beginning every single one of these guys was going to die. I just had to make those deaths hurt. That was like the whole imperative. And thus was born the very sadistic fantasy author that you know as Andy Peloquin, because I discovered I had so much fun really making you care about the character, knowing that I was going to rip them away from you. And so I've just continued to do that time and again, and it's just addicting as hell.
You are so cruel.
So it actually became, this graphic novel script became
Oh,
it became the 6th book in my Silent Champion series, where
my
I
God,
switched
I didn't
it
know
from
that.
yeah, I switched it from Dwarven Riflemen. So basically, it's this company of Dwarven Riflemen that they're marching because these elves come to them for help, saying this enemy, monstrous, is coming to overrun them, and they basically go and fight their way to a final stand where they stop the enemy from getting past whatever through the canyon to go and kill all the people. So that's exactly what this is. It's called The Last March. In the rest of the series, it's set up that this 9th company basically saved the whole kingdom from being destroyed by sacrificing themselves, every single one of them dying. So I got to write this book knowing you're going to die and you're going to die and you're going to die. How do I make that death hurt as much as possible? It's probably been one of the most fun that I had and one of the most emotional books that I've ever written, because it was, I mean, the end is coming, and so you just dig that knife deep and twist as hard as you can, and when it's done well, you feel it.
Yeah, there's multiple stories like that where you know from the very beginning that nobody's making it out alive, but you just make them care so much about these interesting and funny and relatable characters, so that when they do die, it's just like, oh shit, I forgot that they were going to die.
Yeah. And
I love those kind of
you
stories.
don't even really have to give them an arc in the traditional sense of the word, because death is their destiny. You do give them some kind of an arc, but it's not like you can even kind of play with let's say more two-dimensional characters, because all that matters is that we the reader feel for them, which means give them a little bit of conflict, give them a little bit of growth, give them a little bit, make them really relatable. But then their death has to be the end of their arc. So what is the arc that their death solves? Maybe one of them is a coward the entire time, but then by not turning and running, his death achieves this moment of growth. Or, a character is whatever, he's weak, and just because he's weak, that actually means his weakness is the thing that makes him the hero at the end, or whatever the case is. So you get to kind of have these it's almost like a snapshot of a character where the death is the culmination, and it just kind of wraps up their story neatly. It's a simpler character progression, I think, than a character who has to live through it, but it ends up being a lot of fun when you can do it like that.
Yeah. I'm going to get into a little bit of a process with this question. For stories like this, and just stories in general, do you usually have an ending in mind, and then you go back to the beginning and work your way there? Or do you start with this ending that you're like, everybody's going to die, and you work your way backwards to write the story?
So for both this one, and so I've written a few of them where the outcome is inevitable. So for The Last March and for a couple of the Night Guild novellas in my Queen of Thieves series, the characters in those series have to end up joining the Night Guild, which means something terrible has to happen to them. So I know kind of what that thing is, but then I don't know the path to get them there. I start off by setting them up with a situation, and then just kind of let the characters develop on their own. Or so let's say for The Last March, the main character, Colton, right? Colt. He's the only one who I knew of because he's the main character. Everybody else around him was just kind of written for expediency. Maybe the captain's a good guy, or he's kind of an asshole. Maybe the lieutenant is a nice person and the coward. Or I just kind of went into it knowing I need to make each of these deaths matter to the character, and that's when it matters to the reader. So it's just kind of building it out, building all those characters out as the story needed. But that's very different, I think, than writing, your classic novel, because with this one, you can kind of work backward, but I feel like the working backward almost removes that moment of hope where everything is going to be okay, because it's that everything that's going to be okay that makes that everything is going to go to shit really, really hurt. So you kind of let it happen organically, and you can kind of feel the rhythm of it. We're going forward, we're making progress. There's this hope, and then nope, setback. And then you just kind of build it up, 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 up. And then that end happens, and everybody is destroyed, and you are laughing maniacally to yourself. It's a good
You
day.
have to make, yeah, you have to make the reader forget that these people are all screwed.
Yeah. 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 Or make it look like they're not. Really make it convincing. Give them that moment of hope and really sell it, because that is what makes it. And I learned this from the Malazan Book of the Fallen, the Chain of Dogs, and also 300. 300, there was always this kind of inevitability to it. There was never a moment where we thought they would find freedom, but we thought maybe they could win this battle or kill Xerxes or whatever. But with the Chain of Dogs, I'm spoiling Malazan book 2, but if you haven't read it at this point, it's kind of on you. This whole company of people are marching to get away from this enemy, and this enemy is killing them, and they're within sight of the city that is their salvation. And you know they're going to be okay. And then they get swept up and they die. And it was that moment that I was like, oh my God, he totally had me believing that it was okay, and it made that ending just hurt all the worse. And so that was what really taught me how to do a book like this, and really play into that, give them that hope, one piece of hope at a time. You really build the foundation of, okay, if we do this, then we can defeat the enemy. If we do this, the enemy can't catch up to us. If we do this, we have a chance. We can speed up. We can do all of this, and have them do all that. We watch them about to succeed, and then everything goes to shit, and then we see who they really are in that final moment. And I just love that.
Yeah, that's a very crunchy part of the story that you can really sink your teeth into. I
Yes.
love that. So how has your process for writing and your style evolved over time, though? So because you wrote the first version of that story a long time ago before it became this, how did your writing style evolve between then?
I think I became better at outlining a lot of things. Like, I've always been an outliner, but I was a bit more intentional with outlining before I kind of got into the writing process, so I knew where I needed to go. But then for a while I was pretty strict with staying with that outline. And now I'm like, the outline is just the general roadmap, and I'm going to take whatever tangents my brain tells me it needs to, because my brain has been doing this long enough that I can trust my instincts. I mean, I've written books that people have liked. None of them have been terribly reviewed and said this is the worst piece of art ever. So clearly my brain knows something about what it's doing. And so if I kind of trust that instinct, I think that's the biggest evolution I'd say about for me as a writer, is just learning to trust that creative instinct, that even if I don't understand why I'm making this decision, it's going to pay off, or I will figure out how to make it pay off one way or another.
Yeah, because you're at, God, how many books now? I know like the Darkblade series has at least 8 books.
We're at 10, working on 11 right now, but I'm calling it 45 books because then I don't have to count till I hit 50.
That's honestly very impressive. Like, that is an amazing number for how long you've been doing this, and it is very admirable how prolific you have been with this. Do you have any particular like method or secret that allows you to dedicate so much effort to this, to pump out so many books?
You know, I kind of have a cheat code in that I was doing copywriting, and I was accustomed to sitting down for hours, and I could write 10 to 15,000 words. I was up at around 90 accurate words per minute, which for somebody who learned to touch type by writing was pretty good. Like, I still don't really 100% touch type. I still look down every once in a while, but I got really fast, and I got used to just kind of sitting down and putting out the work. But the biggest evolution has just been learning that, okay, I'm just driving forward. Whether I understand why this sentence came into my brain or not, I'm just going to keep pushing forward until the chapter's done, and then I can come back later on and edit it. But then often the chapter doesn't really need editing, or if I'm not certain, I can leave a note for my beta readers and say, does this work? Does this not? And they'll tell me, yes, this is clear, this needs to be tweaked, or whatever the case is. So that's probably been my secret weapon, of just kind of the fast typing, the accustomed to sitting down, and then just telling myself to keep pushing forward. You know, the Dory method, just keep swimming.
Oh, nice. Good callback. I love that. You said Dory method for a second, and I didn't get it until you said
thought
the
it was
swimming.
An actual, really intelligent sounding method.
Yes. You're very good at making things sound smart. So your stories often explore like the darker sides of humanity. Many of your main characters are like assassins and thieves. What draws you to writing these like shades of gray protagonists, and how do you avoid making them feel unlikable?
So those are two. So I'm gonna answer the first one by saying I find them more real in many instances than a noble hero. Like, really, how many noble heroes do you know? Right? There's a couple of pretty decent dudes out there, but there's also way more less than decent dudes. But what I love is that in the darkness, the little spark of goodness shines brightest. Right? So you don't have to have someone be the most honorable or the most intelligent or the most decent. You just have to have somebody fight their own worst nature to better themselves in some way. And this is the whole story of Darkblade, is that this character is driven to kill by the voice in his head. So what's he going to do? He's going to channel it and make sure that he only kills people who deserve death. That's not a really big moral, victory, but it is a bit of a moral victory in the sense of, if I don't kill somebody, I'm going to go insane. So I'm going to try to choose somebody who is worthy of being killed. And you kind of see these small little moral decisions that he makes again and again and again. And by the end, you realize, oh, this is actually potentially a pretty decent dude if shit just wasn't so stacked against him, right? If he didn't have this magical dagger that drove him to kill, if he didn't live in a city where the weak, get preyed on by the strong, if demons didn't exist, if he was better at being communicative and talking with people, like, there's so much stacked against him. But what's so fascinating is right now working on book 11, he just made the decision to come out and tell somebody something, and he's like, look, I needed to tell you this. It's this moment of immense vulnerability that in book 1, Hunter, never would have happened. He would have been like, I'm going to kill you rather than do that. So watching him evolve little piece at a time, and then looking back from later and saying, wow, he has come such a long way, just kind of knowing that it's those small steps of humanity that really make people better. I think I like setting them in that kind of framework with the darkness. As for like the underside of society, I mean, it's just thieves and assassins have more fun. Knights, what are knights gonna do? Knights end up, playing politics. They march in the army. There's all that kind of stuff. The fantasy stuff that I don't care about. What I care about is, you put somebody I care about in danger. That's personal stakes, and the best people to do that naturally are people who live violent lives. So that for me is what keeps drawing me there. What was the other half of the question?
The second part of the question was, how do you make them feel like, how do you avoid making them unlikable? Because generally, like, assassins and like thieves, they're not seen as good people, but you find the goodness in them. How do you manage that?
So that comes down to context. Context is everything when it comes to these characters, because, I mean, if you look at the body count of Darkblade, we are in the tens of thousands, right? And I mean on-screen deaths. But every one of them is worse. And all you have to do is make all of them worse. Or in the Thieves, right? Who is she stealing from? She's not going to steal from the nice people. She's going to steal from the rich, arrogant, greedy noblemen. Obviously, that is incredibly reductionist, and it's not entirely a balanced worldview. But you think about that. Maybe she does steal from somebody. There's one moment in Queen of Thieves where she is literally starving, and somebody stops and gives her food, and she picks their pocket and steals their purse. Well, that's not a great human thing to do, but we all understand survival. So there's kind of we're okay with it. You kind of get used to playing in those shades of moral gray, and you keep framing it in a way that in some cases they're almost victims of their own circumstances, like Queen of Thieves. She has no choice but to steal, or they are literally going to kill her. So we can understand that. She's going to be, if she doesn't steal, she's going to starve. If she doesn't steal, she's going to be beaten. If she doesn't steal, she's going to get hung by the law and order. So playing with that perspective and playing with that, sort of like the base survival instincts, it's very dark because we are not necessarily okay with that as a human, as a person. But when put into that context, we're like, look, I may not agree with it, but I can understand it. And that's usually enough. And then you build on top of that the small acts of goodness and kindness. So she's trying to gain acceptance in the company, the house that chose her. So she sees one of the kids struggling to sew his clothing. So she sews it for him. She's like, I got this. Small act of goodness. She's doing it because it's going to ingratiate her to them, but she's also doing it as kind of a small gesture of goodness. And then somebody else needs help. Or in the second chapter of Darkblade, the hunter just finished killing his way through an entire ship's worth of crew, but we find out that they are sex traffickers. So we're instantly okay with that, right? And then he goes to the shipping container that had all the women, and he breaks it open and says, you're free to go. And then he throws a purse there and says nothing else and fucks off. But just that one moment of, I didn't have to do this thing, but something compelled me to leave them a little bit of money to survive. I'm not helping them anymore. I'm just making, but it's those small gestures. It's kind of the save the cat thing. You don't actually have to save a whole cat. You just have to be like, oh, no, that cat doesn't deserve to be run over by a wagon wheel. I'm just going to move it a little bit and move on. Just, it's really, really small. You can get away with that kind of stuff in dark fantasy way more than you can in the more epic stuff where you need the knights to be real heroic and have these, I will sacrifice myself for the good of the kingdom. Yeah.
Not your bag. You need some bloody murder going on in these books.
I will sacrifice myself for the one person who knows who I am as a human being and who cares about me, which is the whole story of Darkblade or Queen of Thieves. I will sacrifice myself if it means protecting somebody else who means everything to me. But the world, it's so unrealistic. Yes, I will save the world because the world, or that's not my perspective of people. So that feels much more real to me, or I can wrap my head around those personal stakes that ultimately do end up saving the world, but it's not the world as the first consideration.
Yeah, the world is just too big of a concept, like 3 billion, I don't even know what number
and
we're at.
That level of altruism does not exist. It's been theorized that it could exist, that there are people who could become so aware of the emotions and feelings of others and the desires to put others before them that they actually could do that. But in reality, 1 in a bazillion people actually gets to that level. So it feels so much more real to make an everyman who's like, look, fuck the world. This person's going to die if I don't do something. So fine, I guess I'm going to go save the world.
Yeah. I really liked the Hunter as a character. He was kind of like Artemis Entry meets Dexter.
Yes, 100%. So Artemis Entreri and Drizzt Do'Urden are like the blueprint for this character, right? So he is like 55% Drizzt and 45% Entreri because he is so willing to just fuck people up and but at the same time, like the guardsmen, they don't need to die. Okay, I'm not going to kill them. He knocks them out or whatever. Or the dogs. The dogs, they don't need to die. He just had to put a little bit of effort in first, and there you go, right? At the same time, he's totally willing to kill the noblemen and the guards who are just huge dicks. So it's just like you kind of find just that humanity enough. And this is where using that mindset of 45% Entreri and 55% Drizzt is that kind of mantra in my head. Just the right side of villain on the heroic side, but no more.
Oh yeah, those two characters, I grew up reading so many of their books, and their rivalry is still one of my favorites to this day. I can see them.
Here's this right there, yeah. I have, yeah, no, that whole Icewind Dale is so formative for me as a reader and then as an author, and it also showed me that I don't want to do the big Icewind Dale story. Like that's too big, right? You've got the invasion of the dwarves trying to reclaim their homeland. There's so many lovely little moments. Anytime Thibble Dwarf Pwent is on the screen, I'm instantly in. But that's the value of a powerful character and not the value of a powerful story. So you have all of these moments that are like, okay, this is what I loved about Forgotten Realms. So I take all of that and then all the other stuff of like the big sprawling cast and world. No, I want that narrow Drizzt focus. Like I think my favorite books are the prequels because it's all just in his head and nothing else.
Yes. When he's coming up from the Underdark and everything. Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. Those, in my opinion, those are the best Salvatore books.
Yeah.
Like he's written a lot of great books, but those, he really nailed it right there.
He absolutely did. And actually, the hunter's name, the Hunter, is a direct homage to Drizzt in the Underdark because he calls himself the Hunter. Like that's how he refers to himself that whole time. And I was like, oh, fuck, that's perfect. And so much of the way that Drizzt operates by sheer instinct and sheer like his other senses when he's in the dark and can't see, and he's listening and he's feeling and he's smelling, that was what made me choose the route of the hunter being very sense driven and very instinct driven, when it comes to him doing everything. So yeah, that one's baked into my DNA as a writer.
Yeah, that was something I picked up when reading Darkblade. Is the hunter is very scent focused, and that is a sensation that many authors, especially new authors, forget to incorporate into their story and their scene setting. We talk a lot about like what we hear, what we see, what we feel, but we don't really talk a lot about what do we smell? What does this room smell like? And that was something you really emphasized in that story.
So that's two reasons for that. One of them is that something I published before writing Darkblade. I self-published it. It does not exist anywhere else. You can't find it. Don't go looking. They said it lacked sensory details. Like, it was a great story, but it lacked in the sensory details. We weren't really anchored in the scene. So I was like, okay, this is something that I need to do. And obviously, sounds are very, very common. Sights are very, very common. But I have this really strong memory of anytime I smell gardenias, I'm drawn back to this moment when I'm like 3 years old, walking with my mom late at night, and we stop underneath a light post where the light is shining down on a little patch of gardenias growing out of the concrete. Obviously, this memory has been distorted by time, but the memory is so clear. And in my research of, to write this character, the link between the olfactory nerve that picks up scents and the memory is even stronger than sight and sound. So I believe it is the strongest link, the strongest trigger of memory. And so I was like, well, that's what I need to do, because when I have him feeling like having the smells of the mysterious woman from his past, it's this visceral thing that if it was a sound, it would be triggered by somebody's laugh, but not everybody laughs the same, by a bell, like that. That's too vague. Whereas you smell a flower and this person smells like flowers, that is like, I can still identify people by their smell that I knew decades ago because they wear the same thing or they have the same smell. So just knowing that, I was like, this is the most visceral and also, let's call it the most primal, because animals track by their sense of smell. And knowing that I wanted to make the hunter a bit beast was like the perfect storm that led to that decision.
Yeah, you executed it well. You executed it very well. Get my words right. We'll get there. Something I did want to mention from a few questions ago, actually, you were talking about how you grew up in a family of artists. And I just wanted to comment that really makes sense now with the tagline on your website that your palette is words, because you grew up with musicians and artists and designers and then could only draw stick figures. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out and be like, I see you, Andy.
They are mean stick figures, I'll tell you what, the stickiest of stick figures. But
nice. I bet they flex real hard.
They do. Those muscles are just like perfectly straight.
So many of your books feature very intense action, probably inspired by Salvatore growing up reading those books. But they also have political intrigue and deep, like, emotional stakes. How do you balance writing these visceral fight scenes with meaningful character development and emotional payoff?
So I see action scenes like musicals see songs and romantasy books see sex scenes. The character development happens through the action. Because a really good example of this in the Secret trilogy that will be coming out in the next year or so. The opening scene is this guy is hunting a minotaur, and the minotaur is suddenly cornered and it turns to charge him. That's as far as I had conceived of the scene. And I was like, well, okay, now he's going to charge, and what happens? And all of a sudden, oh, I dropped this teenaged kid in the scene there where he's hunting the minotaur with him, and all of a sudden the character has to make the choice. Am I going to throw myself in the way, or am I going to not? And for the character, he chooses that. And so all of a sudden we get a sense of who this guy is by the way he throws himself in the path of danger, as opposed to leaping out of the path of danger or literally throwing himself onto the minotaur's horns so that the kid doesn't die. And so kind of understanding that action conveys character and emotion in a very different way, I think, but also a very simple way, in the sense of when you are confronted with your death, that is the most primal moment of your life. Nothing else will ever reveal your true character as much as I'm going to die right now. So knowing that, I just kind of wanted to do that, where it's like again and again, when the character is facing death, what do they do? And I think one of the most beautiful action pieces that I've written is in Darkblade at the end of part 1, where he dives to catch the little girl and he just stays there because it shows you what matters most to him in the world by him staying there and putting himself between, her and the danger. And so doing that, understanding this mechanic of action, it totally changed the way that I see, action in books, because you have action that's just there to have interesting things, to kill people, right? But if you can have the character be confronted with their own mortality, their own limitations, in Silent Champions, it's only when the character is confronted with an enemy who he would have lost to had he fought the way that he originally would, which is sword and shield, like shield wall. Now he's fighting them with a spear, that he realizes, oh shit, I'm fighting a different way, and this is why I win, or this is why I would have lost. And so all of a sudden, their growth as a character throughout the story becomes clear to them through this moment of, I would have died had I kept fighting the way that I used to, but I'm living now. And so just all of these little tiny mechanics, it gives me the chance to do that in a way that I find most interesting, and I would say most primal.
I love how you compared fight scenes to the music, the songs in musicals, because one, I love musicals, big fan. So that definitely tickled my heart. I actually got some advice very long ago that I read online somewhere on the internet forums that I kind of want your opinion on. They said that you should treat fight scenes and sex scenes very similar, in that you want to get in, get what you're trying to get done, and then immediately get out as fast as you can. Don't dwell too long on these types of scenes, because readers tend to get lost in the mechanical details. Have you ran into anything like that before, or do you find that many of your readers, the bloodier the better?
I'm going to say I am the exact opposite of that. This is why my books come out to be this thick. In this, you read Darkblade, you know how much time I spend in the fight scenes. But so a really good example of this would be sort of when he's tied to the obelisk and the third is just wailing away at him, right? Had we gotten in, battered, gone, it's a different story. But him being broken again and again and again, we get to see kind of who he is as a human being, what kind of resilience he has, how he doesn't break, what he does when he's confronted with the worst thing that could possibly happen. So this is where I think that is one style, that this piece of advice is one style of battle that is probably true, because readers don't care about the actual high cut, low cut, backward, forward. What they want is they want a rhythm. They, like in a sex scene, right? They want to feel the things, right? So the character, let's say in a good fight scene, the character, you know what weapons they have, you know kind of what skill they have, you know the general setting, and then you just go. You can do a high chop and the character blocks it. That's about as much mechanics as you want to get, because what you want to do is you want to have the sensory detail of the impact jarring down the spine or through the bones, and all of a sudden, oh, this character's stronger than I was. We're back to people development as opposed to here's the mechanics. And so you kind of have this in and out to the scene where it's like, all right, we're giving you the nitty gritty to show you the person beneath or behind the weapon. And you do that as kind of again and again, as often, or, as there's a rhythm to fight scenes, there's a rhythm to sex scenes, there's a rhythm to conversations. Everything has a rhythm. If you get in, get what you need, and get out, you're losing the rhythm. You want to actually let it happen, let it evolve, where the character goes in, he's convinced he's going to win or she's going to win, and all of a sudden the enemy surprises them. That moment of surprise is just the first. You got to go, okay, I'm surprised, I'm off guard. What am I going to do? Am I going to die? Okay, recover. push back. Oh, the enemy's surprised now. And it's just this kind of back and forth. And you saw this with Entreri and Dritz. Those fight scenes went on for fucking ever. And you were there the whole time, because what you got was the character development through the way that they saw it, the resilience, the determination, the my arm is broken. Anime does fight scenes way too long, but you get the feeling of it, right? So I'm watching Record of Ragnarok right now, which is basically just gods fighting humans, and each fight is like 4 episodes too long. Way too long. But the way that they go through these scenes where it's like, let me tell you about the character, why they fight this way. And then you see them grow and advance and then unleash some power. And then, oh, but their enemy actually has a secret and he does it. And it's like 4 episodes, much too long. But the rhythm to it is very, very intentional and very addicting, because you know someone's gonna die at the end of this fight. The stakes are as high as they get. Now you just have to, you're on tenterhooks to find out how's it going to go? Who's going to win? Who's going to be stronger? And you don't know. They do a great job of keeping you in suspense all the way to the very, very end. And that's what a good fight scene is. So I think the kind of person who said that suggestion of get in and get out may be a different kind of reader. Whereas for me, I want a fight scene that I am there for the whole time, but feeling the way the character's feeling, thinking the way that they're feeling. And the longer they're in that setting where it's kind of life or death, I think the more I feel that adrenaline. Or at least when I'm writing it, I know that I want to spend as much time in this moment as it needs. And you kind of feel the forward, backward, side to side, the mistake, the moment, the reversal, there's just kind of a rhythm to it that you feel. And that's how you get what, the Sanderlanche. The Sanderlanche is just step, building until you're like, oh my God, it's done finally. And it's almost like you're depleted. That's a good fight scene.
Again, you bring up another great example from R.A. Salvatore with Drizzt and Artemis. I can still remember reading, like, it's been decades at this point, the very first scene where they meet each other, and how it describes Drizzt seeing a shadow on the wall that suddenly attacks him, and it's Artemis.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely wild. Like, I can't get enough of that stuff.
It's those things that are burned into your head. When they're done right, when they're done poorly, it's flat. But a well-done fight scene, I got some really good advice from both Phil Tucker and David Estes, both amazing authors in their own rights. David Estes writes the Fate Marked series, huge epic battles. Phil Tucker, he did the Chronicles of the Black Gate, again, big epic battles. And they were like, just keep twisting. March forward, and then twist, backward. And then twist forward and then back, but then, side to side. So it's like, if let's take it 2 armies. The armies clash. It's not static. One of them is going to push somebody a step backward, and then they're going to push the other way. Or there's going to be another motion, and then somebody's line is going to waver, and then there's going to be a twist. There's going to be a reversal. There's going to be reinforcements, and then okay, how do they adapt? And then maybe it's pushing back the other way, or oh my God, it's further back. But it's this kind of endless motion, and just keep twisting and reversing and changing until you've done it enough times that the reader has no idea which way it's going to go. And then you hit them with that final thing, and it feels so earned when you have that battle.
So you're continuously changing the circumstances that the combatants are in, pretty much.
Or changing the way it looks like it's going to go. A really easy one is have your super competent swordsman trip. It happens all the time. All of a sudden, he's on his back. She's on her back. What do? How do they fight? Maybe they're about to die. Maybe they take a wound that looks like it's going to kill them, and they turn at the last minute, and the person's sword breaks on the stones. And all of a sudden, their disadvantage becomes their advantage, because now the person is fighting with the sword. And then they get to their feet, and then they fight. Oh, but they got disarmed. And then the person's coming at them to try to kill them. And oh, wait, they got a dagger that they've hidden away. And it's just like, find that way to twist, and you keep twisting and twisting and twisting until you feel this moment of, okay, it's done. This is the end of the fight scene. You'll feel it, I think, when you actually get through the rhythm of things.
Okay. I'll have to keep that in mind next time I'm writing the next fight scene, because you do fight scenes very well.
Thank you.
Like, you can see your influences, like, on your sleeve, but they are phenomenal. Something I did want to ask you before we get to the end of this episode, because we've been flying through this already. I can't believe how much time has passed already. Doesn't feel like it. But at what point in your career did you feel like you were an author? Like, when was that moment of, yeah, that is what I am?
I would probably say when I had my first, let's call it a big success, which would be with the Darkblade's predecessor, which was Hero of Darkness. Before it became Darkblade, it was another series too. It was originally called Blade of the Destroyer, was the first book. I got the rights back from the publisher and republished it myself as Hero of Darkness. That was the series title, and that series took off in a totally unexpected way. And so this was where, like, okay, everything that I've done up until this point is paying off, and this is where I was like, okay, this is the proof that I not that I know what I'm doing, but I'm doing what I should be doing. Whether I'm the greatest writer in the world or not does not matter. People are connecting with this story. The story is selling. People are liking it. It is entertaining, if nothing else, changing people's lives at best. That was kind of the moment. And ever since, it's been just kind of like, I mean, there was this one success years ago. I think I'm still on the right track. That's kind of what I've been holding on to for the last 6 years now.
Well, you seem to be crushing it. Like, I see your face all over the place, pumping up other books. I believe you're working with Atheon? Is that how you say it, right?
Yes.
Atheon. Yeah, so I would definitely say you're absolutely killing it in the indie sphere.
Thank you.
And I know you did like a relaunch of some of your books, and I do want to get into that. We'll probably do that in the next episode.
Definitely.
But for the last question of this episode, looking back on your career so far, from your early self-publishing days to the multiple books that you have selling out right now, what advice would you give your past self about staying motivated and consistent through the long haul of being an indie author?
I would say to remember that it's a long game. Something I see a lot of new authors today do, what I probably did to some extent, was throw everything into their book one and then be disappointed if it didn't work, or throw everything into the first trilogy and then feel like, oh my God, I'm never going to make it. But the truth is that this is, we love writing, right? We are here for the art, and we are making it a business because it's the best thing that we can, it's the best way to keep doing it forever. But that love of the writing is what brings us back here. So hold on to that. Remember that you're going to want to keep chasing that particular thing, probably till the day, your fingers fall off and your brain turns to mush. So if you kind of pace yourself with it, write the story the best you can, learn all the things about advertising and marketing and website design and newsletters and all of that, and then make sure that you've got that solid foundation under you, then publish, then keep working, keep growing. Just give yourself time. It doesn't have to happen right away, but when it does happen, it won't just be luck. You'll be able to say, I did all these things and I prepared myself for the success, and you'll be able to do it kind of again and again.
I love that. That is great advice. Oh, Andy, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Could you tell the people where can they find you? Where can they find your books?
Sure. So all of my books are on my website. I have shelf trophies signed on andypeloquin.com. There are some ebooks and audiobooks there. Everything else is on Amazon and Audible. And I hang out a lot on Instagram and TikTok as Andy Peloquin author. So if you want to be inundated with awesome books to read that you will never run out of a good TBR, follow me there.
Absolutely wonderful. Again, Andy, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Until next time. Oh, yeah. Until next time, let's be author adjacent together. See you. Excellent.
Well done.